Ladies and gentlemen, this is I Against No One from Frankfort, Kentucky. If I could speak properly. I'll let them introduce themselves before we get started.
I'm Doug.
I'm Doug, and we're I Against No One.
Well, Doug and Doug, welcome to the show. As I said, bear with me. This is only my second podcast through the Radio As app here, but we'll get through it together.
That's right.
So, well, thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to have you guys on. We've been talking about this off and on for months. Just had to find the time to do it.
Right.
So, and I will tell you, your record company has shared the invites for the show, so that's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Aaron and crew. So Aaron was my first guest a few months back.
Oh, awesome.
Hello, Aaron, if you're watching. So, well, tell us a little bit about the history of I Against Someone. I don't care who talks, but I know Doug will probably take up half the show, but...
Yeah, I do tend to talk.
He's the front man. That's his job.
Okay.
I Against No One has, I don't know, it's been around since before COVID, but we've not really been who we are for that long. What year did we go to Wisconsin?
21. 22.
So I guess I Against No One, like proper, has only really been a thing since like 2021, thereabout.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a really long time,
yeah.
But I Against No One hasn't been around but just a couple of years. We went through.
By the time I met you guys.
Say again?
I think it's about the time I met you guys when the name first came about.
Yeah, probably. So like, we've known each other for quite some time, long before we even decided we wanted to start doing music together.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were both on the worship team, and we're like, contemporary praise and worship has its place, but that wasn't necessarily the style our hearts were in. So I came to Douglas, and I was like, you know what? I really feel like we need to kind of start a musical venture together. And he was like, yeah, I do too.
I think you actually went to Mom first. I think
Really?
You told her, because she told me, she was like, Doug has something to talk to you about.
So yeah, and that's we initially we had a concept of how we wanted to sound, and then when it got right down to it, we totally scrapped the first song we ever actually made a demo of.
And more material.
Yeah.
We had a whole song and lots of other material, and we just threw it away.
Threw it all away.
Started over from scratch, and that's the sound that we have now.
Yeah.
And how would you describe that sound for people that haven't heard you yet?
The sound that we threw out, or the sound we have now?
The new current sound.
I don't know. It's we call ourselves Worship Core because we weren't sure exactly who we sound like.
Yeah.
But it's a mix of dynamics. There's heavy and there's soft. There's lots of chunky guitar rhythms and sweet little bell synths and
melodic vocals and screamy vocals, and
yeah, we just try to keep things dynamic.
I mean, that's like when I saw y'all this past weekend. You played 3 songs, but you had a good variety thrown in there. So I mean, you threw in going back to the worship sound. You did throw in "Reckless Love," which is a current, well, not a current, but a modern worship song. So,
yeah. So when we were, we have a 5-song EP out plus a new single, but when we were trying to figure out sets, we were like, we should probably have something that people know instead of just the stuff that we have out, so people can sing along to. So we were like, let's kind of take some contemporary worship music and give it the I Against No One treatment. And
right.
So that's kind of how we did with "Reckless Love," because you love that song.
That's my favorite worship song.
All right, I'll give you that. And we heard that song twice that night in both harder versions of that. Well, one harder version, one little more pop rock-ish, but still a little bit harder than the church would probably a typical church would allow.
Right.
Uh, so you say you've been around a few years, and you've got that five song EP. Any plans of new EP, or is it going to be singles going on forward?
What we're working on right now is probably singles oriented, but there's a lot of music that we have that could be released together once it's all, put together really well and sounds good. But I think the next 3 songs that we've got in the oven right now will probably be singles, right?
Yeah, but that also doesn't mean that we can't include them on a
Yeah.
Future EP or something
Drop
down the road.
them.
yeah, drop them. Here's this EP, Pride.
Right. I mean, I've seen a bunch of artists in the heavier vein going to more singles because that's unfortunately with digital media, that's the route a lot of bands are going after
Yeah.
to reach more people.
Yeah, everything has got to be single quality. Like, you've got to do your absolute very best on every song that you put out. Put your heart and soul into every single one because, the days of EPs are kind of over. And I miss that. Like, we used to talk when we were younger about wanting to, like, cut an album, like release an album with 15 to 20 songs. People just don't really do that anymore.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
So, yeah, I'm a physical media person. I've got around my left side, I've got thousands of CDs alphabetized.
Nice.
Yeah.
My partner/wife has said that I have a silver disc addiction.
Okay.
I've had thousands of CDs, thousands of DVDs, Blu-rays. So through the years,
There's something about being able to have that just physically in your hand to look at, whether it's the old when they had liner notes and they had the lyrics in it. There was just something tangible about having that in your hand.
Pictures of the band and the lyrics and the book and the CD case.
Yeah.
All right. And I remember doing that, especially as when I got into harder music and just first not understanding the lyrics. And I was like, okay, what did they say? It's like,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about inspiration for the band. Like I said, you've got some basic idea there with taking worship to a new level. What though was your inspiration to go harder? What style of bands through the years? Not just in modern times. It could be the 70s to now. It could be anybody that's influenced you.
I think you should go first. It's funnier.
No, you go first, and then we can segue into my train wreck.
Sure. Well, when I was growing up, Mom and I didn't really listen to rock music. We listened to a lot of 80s, like, synthwave stuff and 80s pop songs and stuff. Like,
New wave.
Say again?
New wave.
Yeah.
The
So we had
Cars.
the 80s influence, and we listened to country before I discovered I didn't like country. Like, when I was younger, apparently I liked it, or so I'm told. And we listened to, I don't know if you know who Enya is, but I've been listening to, like, new age music forever. It's really pretty, and it's good to go to sleep to. It's like ocean music is what my dad would call it.
Yeah.
And I didn't discover hard rock. Say again?
I have 2 Enya CDs.
Oh, I love Enya, man. Enya's great. But I didn't discover hard rock until I got pretty much into high school, like late middle school, early high school. And when I found it, that was pretty much all I listened to. And up until even today, just is he cutting out?
I'm not sure.
I think he might be cutting out, man. What did you say?
So who were you listening to in high school?
I think Linkin Park was my first, like, real big steps into getting into it. Linkin Park and Evanescence, and then some other new metal bands like Korn was in there. Who else? I mean,
good choices.
Say again.
I said good choices.
Yeah, I mean, stepping into it late, I guess it's pretty good choices. And I mean, all of those bands are still kicking and playing music. But like as I discovered it, I would discover more and I would get heavier and heavier. And when I found Opeth, that's when I fell head over heels in love with that style of music.
Yeah.
The Opeth is they're very heavy and they're very pretty when they want to be, folk rock music
Right.
and it's like a wide range of just heaviness. And that's
Well, they
pretty
have
much
a melodic sound for a heavier band, in my opinion.
what about heavier?
I said they had a lot of melodic sounds for being a heavy band.
Absolutely. And I mean, he's just got a beautiful voice.
That's what
So
I'm saying. With that included, it's a unique style,
Yeah.
but it's not hard to not like them, even when you're not really into heavy music, in my opinion.
yeah, I mean, some of the songs are just way over the top heavy, but like they definitely have a broad range. And in that mix, I also got into like electronic music. I really, to this day, I enjoy trance music. I like the dynamics of that. There's large builds, and then there's these dramatic drops, and then you fall down into these little valleys where things are quieter and prettier, and it builds back up again. I really like the roller coaster, like in whatever kind of music I listen to. I like to be on this dynamic journey.
Yeah, that goes back to your Enya fascination.
Yeah, yeah, it does. That's pretty much where I stayed. I found heavy music and stayed there and have listened to as much as I could find. And I'm a relatively new Christian, so I'm still finding new Christian heavy bands that kind of fit that. I don't know, they scratch the itch for me. Like, it was last year that I got to listen to Convictions for the first time, and like,
Last year, or the year before, something like that.
yeah, it was last year, the year before. But like, those guys are really good, and they're very heavy, and it's not for everybody, but it's definitely for me. So
I freak people out with my Conviction shirt with my upside down cross.
yeah, I wore it to the Juggerland concert and had my first dialogue about it. The guy walked up and he was like, "So, young man, I just want to ask you, what's the deal with the upside down cross?" And I'm like, "It's unworthy to be crucified, upright." Like, I love that shirt. That shirt's great.
It's like, I'm glad you asked.
I wore mine to Louder in Life a few years ago, and people were looking at me like, it's cool. I'm like, but did you see the back?
Right, exactly. Let me turn around real quick. You get the rest of the picture.
Then,
Yeah.
then you get to tell like go back to what you said. You get to witness, or you get to tell people why you're wearing that.
Yeah.
So
That's it.
Sorry, but everybody's like, well, looking at me. I started out with Metallica in 1985 and got progressively heavier through the decades, and still stuck there.
Right.
So
You go ahead, man.
all right,
Everyone wants to hear about your musical influences.
I tell you.
Doug's train wreck, he says.
Yes. So I have a very eclectic musical taste. Grew up with music constantly on in the house, whether it was top 40 radio or big band records, or my mom loves Neil Diamond, so those records were on all the time. I was born mid 70s, but the 80s were especially really big musical influence for me. But I also was able to get in on the the U2 and the Pink Floyd and the Van Halen, both with David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar.
I like Pink Floyd.
Yeah. So it's kind of bridge that gap. And then my high school years were the 90s, so I was really into grunge and alternative stuff, punk rock stuff.
I missed all that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it ran the gamut from regular top 40 stuff. My sister's got me by about 6 years, so she was into some of that like college radio stuff, like REM and Edie Brickell and that sort of stuff. So that I was really introduced to that. And I was also Metallica, mid 80s Metallica. Cut my teeth on some of that. And I know this is exactly what Douglas is waiting for. So we're just going to throw this out there. My musical guilty pleasure is boy bands, and I'm not ashamed of that.
I wasn't going to bring that up. I was going to let you bring that up. You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, I will own that until the day I die. Actually, so boy bands and 90s R&B is actually where I really learned the concept of harmonies.
I was going to say that. Was going to say where you probably got that from.
And so as far as finding harmonies and things and things like that, those were the two big places where I was able to really hone harmonies, was singing along with that stuff. I mean, like your Boyz II Men and Shy and all of those, all of the 90s R&B people, and then the boy bands. I'm not ashamed of it. I'll own it. My first concert was a New Kids on the Block concert.
Yeah. Hey, you gotta like what you like, but I get where you're coming from with the harmonies. I mean, you mentioned everything. I've got my collection over here.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. I've got big band, I've got classic, I've got rock, I've got rap, I've got, you name it, country. I probably got everything number one hit from probably the last 50 years, 60 years probably even.
Hey,
I should
go. You got them on 45s?
No CDs, unfortunately. I lost all my 45 vinyl, and I've got one vinyl to my name, and it's actually got a picture of one of my tattoos in it. So,
okay.
You ever heard of a Christian hard rock heavy metal band, Crucified?
I haven't.
I don't think so.
Well, it's called Pillars of Humanity, and it's probably my favorite metal album of all time. It even beats out Metallica, and that says something because I'm a big Metallica fan too.
Yeah.
You said they're called Crucified?
Crucified.
I'll make a note.
They're on YouTube and Facebook and Spotify and such. They're all over the place. So.
I'd say like most people. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was listening. Sorry.
I was going to say, probably like most people, I first cut my teeth on non-hymnal Christian music with Stryper. That was my first,
I still haven't Stryper.
See?
I just haven't.
So, yeah, that's where because my mom was like, she was one of those that was said, if you're going to listen to that type of music, I want it to have a message. So I listened to him, and I was like, okay.
That sounds like your mom.
Yeah, that's mom.
Are they the ones that did To Hell with the Devil?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I have heard that.
Yeah.
So I have heard that.
Yeah.
I stand corrected.
So yeah, that was my introduction to Christian music.
Yeah.
Where you're not standing there with a hymnal singing to the organ.
Right. I think mine was
that was my introduction to Christian metal.
Yeah.
And then my first concert, October 22nd, 1988. First ticket I ever bought.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that?
I've actually got a. Go ahead.
Was that the To Hell with the Devil album?
No, it was the In God We Trust album.
Okay.
But
right.
my wall right in front of me, I've got the To Hell with the Devil CD autographed by all four original members. The 30th anniversary poster autographed by all four original members, and then their album Fallen.
Okay. Yeah.
All together. Because they're still one of my favorite bands. No, I don't care what anybody says. I think they can blow the roof off almost any place they play.
Oh yeah.
They blow away a lot of their contemporaries that are still performing with the vocals.
Yeah. Michael Sweet is still able to sing the crap out of those songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah. So the 30th anniversary, was that the did you go to the one that was at the Mercury? Yep. Yeah, we were there too.
Yeah, I was there. Then that was in 2016, and then in 2019 I had an encounter with Oz Fox that just 15-year-old me was freaking out because I got to hang out with him for 2 hours. And
that's really cool.
And that's part of what gave Radio Oz its name. Was
yeah.
Oz, the Oz part of that. And
that's cool. That's cool.
and then going back to Pink Floyd a minute ago, also with the Dark Side, Pink Floyd, Dark Side and Wizard of Oz
Okay.
put together. Have you ever heard that urban legend that you sync the album up?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, that's where the Radio Oz comes from. If you look back at the history of Radio Oz, the Facebook page, there were pictures I would use from the Wizard of Oz to build up the page.
Okay.
That's cool.
They had musical inspiration. Like one of them looks like a heavy metal band, but using the characters from Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
There was a picture of everybody sitting on couches, laid back, listening to the Dark Side of the Moon.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
All right. So we've got your inspiration. So, and I can hear some of that in what I've seen live and on the CD, which is great. You've got a new single called 99 that seems to be doing really well for you fellas on the charts. I mean, for guys that probably never thought they'd be on a chart, for one, and we got signed within the last 3 months with Resurrection Records.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us how that became about.
Yeah, you're looking at two guys who are extremely in awe of everything that has happened. Because when we first started this, we were like, we just want to make some music to reach people. We weren't quite sure how that was going to work, but we were like, we want to do it because our hearts are in it. So we didn't expect anything to come up of it. But as far as getting on with Resurrection Records, it was just after it was like, I don't know, January 1st or January 2nd.
Yeah.
I think is we got a message on the band Facebook page or the messenger, and it was like, hey, I'm Aaron Michaels, Aaron Hobbs, have Resurrection Records, and kind of basically the gist was, been kind of looking at you guys, wondering if you'd want to sit and talk about possibly coming on for Resurrection Records. And I saw it and I looked at my wife and I was like, well, what sort of scam is this? So it's got two different names in here. Ain't nobody looking at us. This little band from Frankfort, Kentucky, and wound up getting with Douglas, and we were kind of talking it out. And we're like, okay, let's did some research, and the dude is a real dude.
Yeah.
Aaron Hobbs is a real guy.
Yeah.
Resurrection Records is a real thing. We knew about them. So we said, yeah, sure, let's sit down and talk. And we wound up having a video call for like 2 hours or something.
Yeah, it was lengthy.
Yeah, it was a really good call, and we just kind of got to talk about stuff and our direction and philosophies and wants and things like that, and kind of what he has envisioned for Resurrection Records and them moving on into the future, and it really lined up a lot with both of our ideas and thought processes and desires really lined up. So we talked about it. We were like, yeah, let's do it. So we wound up signing, and
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah, it was very much a God presenting opportunities to us.
Yes.
Like Doug was saying when we started, and still, like right now, this second, we'll play for one person.
Right.
One person is going to get anything out of it at all to meet the Jesus that we have met, that we know.
Mm-hmm.
One person is enough. So, like, we weren't ever really looking for success except just to reach people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been wild how things have progressed for us, for sure. And no, we certainly did not expect to be on the radio when we started out.
No, not at all. I don't even know if we expected that we were actually going to even
Cut something.
produce anything. Yeah.
I can understand that. I'm amazed with myself. I mean, going to shows and everybody's like, "Are you Metal Mike?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but how do you know me?"
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm not world famous, but I kind of am, I guess, without knowing it.
We say that we're kind of regionally known, sort of, but not really.
Sort of.
Well, I'm trying to help you get worldwide, get you out there a little more.
There we go.
I mean, even like you said, if it's just one person that hears you, I've
Yep.
shared you with. I've done my job to get your word out.
Yeah.
So, going back, I know both of you have a testimony or two. Well, I don't care who starts, but
Yours is much
What
better.
It's shorter.
It is shorter.
Well, so,
short. I didn't say there's a time limit. I don't have my watch up here going.
I don't have the gift like Doug does. I'm not as I don't know how to say it. Anyway, so I grew up in a Christian home. It was just me and my mom, pretty much my entire time growing up. It was just the two of us, and we went to church every Sunday, and I got baptized. But I got baptized because I felt like it was the thing like I was supposed to do. Like it was what was expected of me, and it was going to make mom happy, so I did it. And like looking back, I can see that like I had faith, but it didn't mean anything to me like it does now, I guess. So I did the things that I was supposed to do, and then around high school, I had a big falling out with Jesus. By falling out, I mean like I renounced my faith and ran as fast as I could the other direction to places much darker where I could find and use my own power. So I got heavy into occult stuff, and pretty much stayed there, relying on my own power and my own ability to manifest the things that I wanted in my dreams and my reality until my life crashed down around me several times. I burnt everything down. I'm good at that. And I was out of state at the time. I moved back to Frankfurt from Indiana, and just kind of smoldered here for a couple of years. And the whole time that I was here in town, mom was like, why don't you just come to church with me? Just like one time, just come to church. And she eventually ended up bribing me, and it worked. So I went to church with mom, and it wasn't like amazing or anything, but there was a song that played. It was called Blackout by Stephanie Gretzinger, and it was contemporary worship, but not a kind that I had ever heard before, and it really struck a chord with me. The song is about being lit up from the inside by the light of God and shining, cities on a hill for other people to see. And it meant more to me now that I can see it, look back, it meant a lot more than I thought it did at the time. But so I heard that, liked it, and came back with my mom, still being bribed, and met this guy. And at the time, Jeremy Zeller was the worship leader at, was that Quest?
No,
That was
Vineyard.
That was Vineyard? It was Vineyard? Okay. So I talked to Jeremy Zeller at Vineyard, and he was looking for a bass player at the time on the worship team. And I was like, well, I'm not a Christian, but like I could play the bass really good. So I came and I had a tryout with him, and he was like, you don't need to play anymore. You're in, you're good. And so
you can play more than root notes. You're fine.
So I started playing with them. I don't think I shared this last time that I got in from into the band first. I don't think I ever shared that.
Yeah.
So mom brought me in, and then I started playing music, and it slowly started to work on me until, man, I have it written down somewhere. I don't know what my new birthday is, but it was several years ago. I gave my life to Jesus for real that time, and that was, man, what, like 2016, 2015, something like that.
Yeah,
I don't remember. I don't know.
I think it was after that.
It was a decade ago ish, and it wasn't long after having done that mom came up to me and she was like, Doug has something to share with you. And that was when we talked about I Against No One. Like it really happened that fast. I spent my life failing to try to make something of myself, by myself, of myself. And when I finally succumbed, I guess submitted is the right word.
Yeah.
And made it not about me, and I wanted to follow a God who knows me better than I know myself, and who loves me in a way that I could never love myself. Doors opened for me, I started to find peace, and I got a brother in the process, and I met a beautiful woman who I married. Her name is Megan. She's over there somewhere. But
Somewhere, like we can't see him.
my testimony, I guess, is just trying to do it yourself. You will always let yourself down. You will always be a train wreck without Jesus.
Mm.
I don't know anybody who's not a train wreck without Jesus, even if they don't know it. It's just we're not meant to be on our own down here.
Right.
We had an actual God die for us to pull us out of this slop. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I wanted to share in the music, like being in the dark places. And you can be in those dark places and still be a Christian.
Yeah.
Being a Christian does not make you immune to pain, fear, loss, all of that ick. It's still there. The difference is that there's light. You're not down there by yourself.
Right. Totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So mine could probably read like any other cycle of regular just American guy, born and raised in a small country church. Like you looked at the church before they added on to it, you would look at it and go, oh yeah, this is the quintessential country church. With youth group every Sunday night, your stuff Wednesday nights, potlucks. My mom was on quite a few boards at the church. Friends with all the other kids and trips to Ichthus and all that. And then, as happens a lot, church politics became involved, and my mom wasn't really keen on stuff that was going on, so we quit going, and then I eventually just kind of found myself drifting away from any sort of faith. Started thinking, well, I believe there's something, but I don't know if it's really, one true all-powerful God. Maybe there's stuff in like the Far East type religions like Taoism and Buddhism and things like that, or just kind of that stuff that you start thinking as you get into your preteens, teen years.
Mm-hmm.
And then just kind of totally drifted away where I was just like, I don't really believe anything. I'd given my life to Christ in that little church, was baptized in that church. It wasn't a performative thing. I really got up there in front of everybody, how they used to do. They give the altar call and you'd come up front, and here's me, this little 8-9-year-old kid, like, oh gosh, I'm standing here in front of all these people. So it wasn't one of those like performative type things. It was, it was a real experience.
Like mine.
Yeah. And but just kind of life and everything else kind of came in. I got into a career in law enforcement. I was in the police academy in 2001. So as you can imagine, all sorts of stuff that you see in that field can really test your faith, can really make you question. You're sitting there going, I see all this junk. I see people at their worst. I've seen death from, little kids all the way up to people in their twilight years and everything in between. And so it really starts making you cynical and hard-hearted. And that's really what happened. I drifted so far away that I was just, okay, well, I'm going to put this big stone casing around my heart because I can't deal with all this other crap that I see every day. Just kind of stuff it, push it down, push it in. And cutting out a lot of different stuff. We wound up going to a church that when I was working, I would be working during church hours. So I'd show up in my cruiser, in my uniform. I'd sit in the back for service, and my wife would be doing whatever. And if I got a call, I could leave and go out. And one day there was a couple that were kind of telling some of their story on stage. And this guy was a homicide detective with the Lexington Metro Police Department. And I was like, okay, I can, I was sitting there, I started looking up, and I was like, all right, you've got my attention. And I was able to see how he could reconcile the stuff that he dealt with and had to do to other people, but also still be a follower of Jesus, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, man, perfect. Really.
Yeah. So when he was done, he came walking back, and I was like, man, I really appreciate it. I totally understand where you're coming from. And this is what made me realize that this was a Jesus thing, because he looked at me and he said, you don't know how glad I was when I saw that car pull in the parking lot. I said, thank you, somebody that will understand. So not only did I need him in that minute to kind of show me that everything was okay, he was able to get that. Thankfully, at least one person will understand where I'm coming from.
I think that's really cool.
Because not every Joe Schmo understands what law enforcement officers have to experience. I mean, you can tell them, and they're just like, yeah, okay. But I mean, it really takes somebody who's been in those trenches as well. So from that point on, the stone started to fall away. My defenses started, getting a little softer. Started serving in that church, and was of all the craziest things, got involved in youth ministry with middle and high schoolers. I don't know where that came from, and I've never been called back since.
Can't imagine why.
No, yeah. So there's been several iterations of that particular church. That particular church folded due to some indiscretion. We got absorbed into another church that wound up closing that satellite campus. So yeah, there's been a whole big saga where that's concerned, that we don't really have the time or the need to air those out right now.
No dirty laundry anywhere.
Yeah. So that's kind of
Also, when I showed up
yeah.
on there.
Yeah. So people, they will have like these incredible stories of their faith journey and coming to Jesus and everything else. I mean, like, Douglas, he's just got this powerful, like, yeah, I grew up and then I got all into the occult, and now Jesus came in with like a boom, this is what's going to happen. I'm just kind of like, yeah, I was in church, and then I wasn't, and then I was.
You don't discount how powerful that is, though.
Yeah.
Because you were the church guy who got disillusioned and disenfranchised.
Mm.
So, like, it's not like you made a decision. It happened over time, which is almost worse, because then you get lost and don't know who you are.
Sure.
It's just as powerful.
Yeah.
It's another message about finding yourself by having God have found you in the first place.
That makes sense.
It's still powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at a police officer, you look at somebody that's been in wartime, PTSD in those situations makes you that hardened.
Mm-hmm.
My dad we found out was in Vietnam after almost, 35 years. Didn't even know it.
Wow.
But looking back, though, there was the telltale signs.
Mm-hmm.
But that was something the Vietnam vets did not talk about, or they did not talk to them about.
Mhm.
So after 9/11 and the Afghan wars and such like that, even the first Gulf War, you didn't even talk about PTSD.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Oh
And
yeah.
I mean, I got a friend of mine that was a former cop in New Albany, led a ministry, and he ended up having to, unfortunately, unalive someone that was underage because, because they had their partner held at almost like knife point. It was an ice pick, and he was higher. The kid was higher than the kite.
Yep.
You know, but that's the situations you deal with. And he had what I remember hearing is he had nightmares consistently just from that one instance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because it was a kid.
I mean, they're there for a while. I would have consistent nightmares.
The dream.
I had the dream. And so you ask any cop, have you had the dream? And they'll say yes. And they won't even have to ask what the dream is. The dream is you get into a situation where you have to shoot and you pull the trigger and either the gun doesn't go off or it comes out super slow. The bullet comes out super slow, or you're shooting somebody and it doesn't do anything. That is
right.
That is the dream. Since I have been out of uniform law enforcement, not working the street anymore, I don't have that dream anymore. But yeah, I mean that type of mental health stuff is there is still a stigma amongst first responders and military.
Yeah. Don't talk about it.
That you don't talk about it because that means you're weak and you can't handle it. And doing that kind of stuff came to a head, and I mean if things hadn't gone the way they went, then you would probably just be sitting here talking to Douglas right now.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's something that's not talked about but needs to be addressed to let the public know that, hey, these guys are putting their life in different ways on the line every night. We've got a family friend right now that her daughter was a cop in St. Louis this past, outside St. Louis, I can't say in St. Louis, but outside of St. Louis, 2 weeks ago, was shot in the face and just had, and it's in intensive care right now.
Yeah.
So, and then she's only been an officer 2 years.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, I've had my share of craziness this last year and a half, but that's crazy too.
Yeah.
It's like what the phone call you don't want for your child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to say that my mom and my wife are both very happy that I'm no longer doing that type of work. So,
All right. Well, I appreciate you sharing, both of you. And it's awesome to hear your lives that have gotten to be straightened out. I mean, we all have faults that we follow daily.
Oh yeah.
So, what does the future hold for you guys?
I don't know. That's kind of broad. Where do you see us in 5 years?
Yeah.
Where would you like?
It doesn't have to be 5 years. It could be 1 year, 6 months. You got a big festival you're playing in 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, man.
Yeah. We're playing KCF. We're super stoked to be back there. The initial round of selections this year, we didn't get a call. We didn't get anything.
Yeah, no, we weren't actually selected.
Yeah.
To play.
So, and I was pretty bummed about that, just for several different reasons. But I was like, well, okay, well, we'll be there anyway, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I was like, we can just pack our gear up and take it.
Right.
Maybe something will happen. I'll need somebody to fill in.
And out of the blue, I got in touch with somebody about actually playing Ichthus, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to work on booking that after this, but I've got something at KCF if you all are interested." And I was like, "Well, let me double check, but I'm pretty sure we're interested." So now we're going back to KCF.
Yep.
We're playing a benefit concert at Rock House 39 in July with Brutality and I think Indivai. I think it's going to be there. And then we'll be back at State Street at the end of July for more of Roger's incredible barbecue.
Yeah.
So good.
Oh my gosh, man.
It's so good.
Hopefully that this month. that month.
Yes. And then August.
So I've heard.
Yeah, there's a guy contacted us about a Celebrate Recovery show in Owensboro, Kentucky.
But we don't have
Yeah.
any information
No,
about that.
no info.
So like we've been, I don't know. Maybe that'll be a thing. We don't know for sure. But.
Yeah. Kind of hoping that maybe somebody, I mean, I'd hate to say somebody drops off of the festival, but hopefully maybe we'll get a message from the Ichthus promoters and be like, hey, we know you guys are close. Do y'all want to play?
That'd be crazy.
So that would be awesome. That would be a September-ish.
I've never actually been to Ichthus.
I went my first festival. I went to Ichthus in '85. I wish I could remember going and paying attention, but I didn't. I was a teenager, and teenagers are just going to things to get away from home.
Right.
And then I started going again, and I went 91, I think 90 or 91 through 93, and then I went again in 2012 when I had. 2012 was awesome. I worked helping stage crew for the Fringe stage. So I got to hang out with Brian Welsh, going back to Korn from earlier, for about an hour behind stage, just me and him talking.
Oh, that's cool.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
that was a cool moment in my history of the shows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember all the shows, the peak bands I've seen at Ichthus, and there was a festival in Louisville called Youth Fest. There was one, it was in Bloomington, Indiana as well. They had 15 to 20 bands a day each time.
Wow.
So I've seen a lot of different bands, and then, of course, secular shows that I've caught up with at Louder in Life. Everybody's like, why do you go to Louder in Life? Well, I'm playing catch up because I had kids to miss shows that were more important than going to a show for 2 decades.
Yeah. But
I said Christian and secular, and this page is Christian and secular. A lot of people don't understand that. I understand that, but that is the way I share my ministry, or people call it. Ministry to me is a strong word when you say that. Combine the two.
Mm-hmm.
But, But I mean,
I guess foreseeable future for us, we've got quite a bit of material that we need to, several that, we only need to really track vocals, and then they'll be ready to send off for mixing and mastering. Booking more shows, and really just trying to get the name out there. Yeah, I mean we've told people, like, we'll play wherever. We don't care, as long as just we'll go, we'll play. If it's just one or two people, that's fine, because like Douglas was saying, the people that are there, somebody will hear what they need to hear.
Right.
Whether it's a big huge crowd or if it's just a handful of people, the message is the same.
And we have played to like one person before.
Yep.
That's the thing we have done.
Yep.
I did a show where it was me and maybe 5 people, and this is bigger artists too.
Yeah.
Even bigger artists. So it's not just you guys playing to one person. It's even some of your bigger artists that you would think would draw a bigger crowd.
Oh yeah.
I've sat there and been one of 5 or 6 people.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel bad for the band, but like you just said, if one person gets the information they need, and it hits their heart, hits their mind, whatever, that's what the job is. That's what you're trying to do.
And sometimes those shows where there's only a couple people there, sometimes those have been the funnest shows. Yeah. There's just something about being, it's just a little looser.
Yeah. Laid back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've been to shows where no festival names mentioned, but everything was timed down to the second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it can get hairy when bands are. There was a misfire on a drum starting, and everybody's like, "Oh, they went 30 seconds over what they needed to, and they needed that 30 seconds because they only had 5 minutes to do a stage change."
Oh yeah.
When it's all prepped, it still takes away from everybody else.
Yeah.
Right.
So, when you go back to the festivals, I mean, y'all haven't been invited to do any of the Resurrection Records festival type shows that Aaron's been trying to get together?
Not yet, but I think it's just because they're so far away. I know they're talking about doing something in Texas, and then I can't remember.
Like Florida,
I think Texas.
Michigan,
Yeah, and it's just like
North Carolina, or something.
yeah, it's like that's. I mean, I know that they talked about maybe having something in Georgia, and we're like, yeah, we could probably, that's doable, but I mean, it's
Up north too.
yeah, it's like somewhere in maybe Ohio but Texas, that's a bit far, especially since we both have regular real jobs.
What's
Gotta
a
make
real job?
money to fuel the beast.
Yeah. So, I know that we're trying to get something kind of like in this region together with Resurrection Records artists.
Yeah.
It just hasn't.
Solidified.
Yeah, it hasn't gotten to the next phase of planning other than, hey, this is kind of the region that we're looking at, who's around it, and where could we hold it, things like that,
Right.
logistical stuff.
Yeah. Well, me and a few of the artists have messaged me or asked me if I know anybody in the region that would be able to afford, or I mean, even if they're not in because a lot of them want to do it as a free show, but still that costs money to get everybody in. And
Mhm.
I mean, especially if you're traveling, you can't, especially with travel costs anymore.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, it's like when we were they were talking $800 to fill up a tour bus.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that kind of money. We were talking about that over the weekend
Yeah.
at the show we were on, and it's like that's a lot of money going just to the gas.
Yeah.
Especially when you're not getting that many miles to the gallon.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I even talked to Kristen from These Beautiful Ruins the show before, and we were talking about the same thing. With their rider, they have to charge so much because their bus has got that type of the situation.
Yeah.
If you're wanting me to come to Pennsylvania, we're going to charge you this much, and that's part of the cost.
Yeah.
It's the transportation.
Yeah, the travel cost.
Yeah.
So, well, guys, we're going to close up for the evening. I've got dinner waiting on me because I'm starved. Been a long day. I had a crazy day at work and everything.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure having you. Let's tell the fans where they can find you all online real quick.
Sure. We're most active on Facebook. There's a little bit of action on Instagram. We don't really have anything much on Twitter. That's pretty well dead, but we have an account anyway. It's at I Against No One across all the mediums. It's all one word, I Against No One. We have a website, IAgainstNoOne.com. If people need to get in touch with us, IAgainstNoOne@gmail.com is our email. Luckily, we were able to. Nobody has decided to string those words together in one particular sequence, and we were able to scoop all those up.
Right. If you wanna get a hold of us, probably the fastest is through Facebook.
Yeah,
I'd
Messenger.
say.
Yeah.
We're most active on there. We try to see everything as it comes in and respond back in time.
It's getting a little different now that things are starting to
A little different.
get a little faster.
Yeah. But that's probably the easiest way to reach us.
Yeah.
And the music is on all streaming platforms.
Yep.
If you use it, it's there.
And YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube.
Yep.
Of course, you can find me on all social with Radio Oz with Metal Mike on all platforms. You've got on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And then playlists are created on Spotify, which will include coming up 99 from I Against No One. And you can also find them with a live video as well on my YouTube channel that was recorded over the last weekend for 99.
That's right.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Yeah.
So, guys, again, thank you.
Yeah.
Look forward to
Thank
seeing you. Hopefully, maybe in a few weeks. I'm still working on my details for KCF. But
Well,
you guys have a great evening. Thank you for joining us. Everyone have a great evening, and we'll see everybody soon.
All
all right. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.